Personnel budgeting is an add-on to the Martus Tools budgeting platform. Within our standard budgeting platform, there are some mechanisms to handle personnel budgeting, but as you know, that topic is a rather different animal than budgeting for revenues and general expenses. Personnel budgeting within Martus Tools allows you to do detailed budgeting at the position level, budget for unfilled positions, handle both employees and non-employees, use separate pay types for all your compensation, automatically calculate payroll taxes, and plan for pay rate changes and changes in the cost of benefits. The concept of scenarios is key to Martus personnel budgeting. A scenario contains some or all positions for which you budget. You can have multiple scenarios for any budget year, thus you could have several different iterations of your personnel budget, or scenarios for specific departments or groups of employees. Personnel budgeting and its scenarios exist in a separate space from the rest of Martus Tools, separate from the reports and from the operating budget. However, personnel budgeting is well integrated with the Martus Tools budgeting platform. Pay types are associated with GL accounts and positions are defined according to the budget areas they affect. When a scenario has been completed and approved, it is posted to the operating budget within Martus Tools. Now let's take a look at a demonstration of the personnel budgeting software. Payroll budgeting has its own menu selection with options for managing scenarios, employees, pay types, and position types. Let's start with some of the most basic information. First, employees. A very important note. We use the term employee within Martus Tools to identify anyone whose compensation is calculated as part of the personnel budgeting module. This term does not have any kind of strict legal connotation or meaning to identify an employee versus a non-employee. Now for each employee, we track a first name, a last name, and an external ID, which is their ID within your payroll system. For non-employees, you might use a vendor ID as the external employee. Pay types are used to define all your types of compensation. This list illustrates hourly, salary, and various kinds of company-paid benefits. Each pay type can be assigned to a specific GL code. More than one pay type may be assigned to the same GL code. There are two categories, hourly and regular. Hourly are the kinds of types for which you will enter a certain number of hours per pay period for each position. Frequencies include weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and once. Use once for a bonus, and for that you'll also provide the date on which the bonus is to be paid. You can use this start date for any other frequency of pay type too. For example, if you're going to start providing a new kind of benefit in the middle of the fiscal year. You can also identify any pay type as taxable, in other words, subject to the payroll tax calculations. Lastly, you'll use the arrows on the left side to control the sequence in which these pay types are displayed in drop-downs and on screens, so that the most common types, like hourly and salaried, are listed first. Position types are optional, used for categorizing positions and filtering detail and summary screens within a scenario as part of your review process. Before we go on, let's talk for a moment about how this data gets into the payroll budgeting module. There are three ways to load data. You can enter everything manually. You can load everything from a file called a pay data file. We do have a standard template for this pay data file. You can load data with the pay data file, then make manual modifications. Add or change employees, add or change positions, and of course, add or change pay items. Let's go back now and continue looking directly at the personnel budgeting software. With all of the basics covered, let's take a look at scenarios, the heart of our personnel budgeting module. First, note that you are in a budget year. This defaults to the budget year set for general budgeting. You can change this and work with a different year if necessary, but that's not normally needed. Second, note that you can have multiple scenarios, though only one is listed here. Select a scenario as current in order to pick which scenario you want to work with. You'll use this screen to copy scenarios, for example, if you want to build a variation on the first scenario, and you'll use this screen to export or import a pay data file. Thirdly, take a look at this important feature, the Config tab. This applies to all payroll scenarios for this budget year. Here you set the first pay date of the year if you use weekly or biweekly frequencies. This is so the system knows how many pay dates are in each month. You also define the account that is used for payroll taxes as well as the percentage used for calculation. Lastly, within a scenario, you'll use the Positions tab to work with all the positions in that scenario. You'll use the Detail tab to see pay details by month and make changes to pay rates, and the Summary tab to see personnel costs by budget area and to post the scenario into an actual budget. This concludes Part 1 of our tutorial on personnel budgeting. Please continue the tutorial with Part 2.